Hello, welcome back to Monument Cycling. This is our 8th podcast of 2024 and our last of 2024. As of recording, it is the 30th. Is there a 31st of December? Yes, there is. There is one day left of 2024. Have you enjoyed 2024, Owen?
Yeah, it's been really good, honestly. Both from personal and professional and cycling point of view. I think it's been an absolute
Not
banger.
your cycling point of view.
No, I don't think I've ridden my bike other than to commute twice.
A non-folding up bike. We need to get you over to the VIA criterium on your
On the
Brompton.
Brompton.
We'll do that in 2025.
That would be good. That would be good.
Right, today we are going to intro TV.Monument Cycling and tease a new sponsor, apparently. We can talk about Tour of the Res, which was not on the calendar and is now on the calendar, kind of. A few British riders that have stepped down to the same team. Some local races to me that I want to talk about because I am biased. A new kind of mobile racing initiative team, UCI team. The Pidcocks are back together. Joe joins his brother. And Cam Mason and Thomas Mine, I can never remember, both ramping up their cyclocross before the British Cyclocross Nationals, which is very exciting. Even though I don't really follow cyclocross, has been interesting to see the results. They both seem to be pushing each other. Are they doing the same races, or are they? I guess we'll talk about it in a bit. But are they doing the same races, or are these different races?
It's kind of every so often crossing paths, but not. They're like Tadej Pogacar and Jonas Vingegaard. Largely avoiding each other.
The Tour de France is British Cyclocross Championships.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Right. TV.Monument Cycling, Owen.
Yes.
You've got 10 seconds to talk about why everyone should go and give you some money.
TV.monumentcycling.com is where we can upload some extra content. It helps support us directly so that we can create more content for you. You can get some little extra tidbits and behind the scenes. And yeah, if you don't want to give money to someone like Eurosport, you can give money to us to help the British scene.
Of course, you don't get coverage of all the world cycling events, but we'll get.
We don't mention that. And teasing
Tour of the Res.
Teasing the new sponsor as well.
Oh, sorry, I jumped ahead there. Go.
Jumping ahead, yes, teasing a new sponsor, which is we are incredibly happy that we've got a new sponsor coming on to help us deliver more content. They saw Monument Cycling TV and they're like, how can we do this to the nth degree? And yeah, they're incredibly generous. They're coming on in 2025, help us deliver more content for the British racing scene. Now, Tour of the Res.
Tour of the Res. Tour of the Res was a stage race, quite a big stage race in the UK, back when they were still called Prems, I think. History
Way
goes back that far.
That's me age, that is.
Exactly, old. And that's pretty much all I know about it. It's just a very hard stage race back in the day that disappeared in 2022, 2021, maybe? Pre-COVID?
It finished with COVID, and then unfortunately the previous race organiser passed away during COVID. And it's been this battle to bring it back. The Tour of the Reservoir is emblematic of a certain type of racing on the British calendar. It's a national series race. It's a 2-day event over some of the hardest hills and terrain that you'll find in the country, and it's been a big dream for a lot of people to bring it back. And now there's this kind of organising committee that are almost there. I think they were almost there for this year, weren't they? And then suddenly they had to stop, and then they're indicating that they're good to go for next year. But the funny thing was that British Cycling announced the national series, and then the organizer of the the Tour of the Reservoir was like, "No, we might be on it." And it's like, wait, hang on a second. Don't British Cycling know who's going to be on the national series calendar? I remember you commented on this. Didn't you?
They don't have to release the calendar yet. Surely if you can just put a TBC or to be decided date and race on there. So I'm not really sure why they seem to have. Obviously, that would have hurt the Tour of Res chances of getting sponsorship and stuff as well. If you're trying to raise funding for a race that's on the national calendar, and it's not on the national calendar. It's like, well, who's going to... What's going on there?
Yes.
Which is a little bit annoying, but obviously very good to be on the calendar. But it's not coming back as a stage race, apparently, is it? It's coming back as a one-day race in 2025.
Yeah, which made me think, it used to be these two days of racing. And the first day was insanely hard. Like, it's hard, I raced it a good few times. And it's kind of hard to express how impossibly difficult it was if you weren't one of the best riders in the country. So the race would start heading up this, like it would deneutralize up like a 10% climb. And then you climbed up to the moors over maybe a 5 or 10 minute climb. And at the top, it was always just this like open crosswind section for like maybe a mile over the top before you drop back down. So not only did you have this really steep climb, you then had this mad crosswind section that would scupper your chances if you were dropped. And then it was just that, like, repeat. So that was the first day, and then you've got the second day as well. So it will be interesting to see how they, like, distill that into a single day. They've indicated they want to go back to 2 days. But I had a question for you. Do we need more tours? Do we need more races that are really difficult? Like, what's your perspective on that?
I think we definitely need more tours. We lost, there was one on the Isle of Man as well, wasn't there? Mm-hmm. That we had for quite a while. Without Tour of the Res, there are just no tours. There are like no stage races at that level. There's a few like National B stage races, lots of regional A ones across the country, I think, kind of dotted around the calendar. But there's none on the national series or a national A level. I think it's just really important for the UK to have races at that level as a stage race. It's just more of an event. It's a bit more dynamic. There's more strategy. There's more reason for a team to go in. You get more return as a sponsor. But you've written a question here on the notes that says, do we need more races that are as hard as Tour of the Res?
Yeah.
I mean, ideally, no. But is it like the beggars can't be choosers, really? I'm not going to be like, delete that race because it's not flat.
Yeah, it's just, I remember speaking once with one of the team organisers. I won't drop his name in it here. But it's just, I think it was like at the Rydale Grand Prix, which is ridiculously hard. You've got Rydale, you've got Lancaster, you've got, at the time, you had some more hilly races. I mean, even Lincoln is not easy. It's flatter,
when Lincoln is considered the flat one, it's like, what is going on there?
Yeah, it's as you say, like beggars can't be choosers. I'd love to see, like, imagine the Tour of the Res, but as a 3-day, maybe with 2 flatter stages. They don't have to be incredibly flat, but flatter stages with a Queen stage to finish, so that you can, rather than killing it all in the first 10 minutes of the race, you can leave it all to the final 10 minutes of the entire tour. Like, that would be pretty sick. I'd like to see that. But there's a lot of moving parts to do that, I imagine. And these guys, their first priority is like, can we actually get the race running again?
Yeah, I mean, didn't the Isle of Man stage race, wasn't that the one that has like a crit circuit and a flat one? Like, that seems quite good. There's not really much, the environment that it creates is that there's not really much point in being anyone other than somebody that can climb and do like a 4-hour single day race really well. Like, that's the only kind of rider that the UK calendar rewards at the moment. And it just makes the barrier for entry so much higher. Like, for me, like, personally, there's no reason I'd enter a national A road race ever. Like, I'm not naturally good enough, and I don't have the time to commit to training to a level that would mean I could actually finish the race. So it's like, why would I ever do it?
Yeah.
But I think riders at my level should be entering these races, and if they were, not easy, but if they were slightly less insanely difficult, then
like way
I
back,
think they would be.
Yeah, we had the Tour of Cambridgeshire, Tour of the Dengie Marshes. Like, there were a few of them were just like pan flat races, and they were brilliant, and they had crosswinds. It was like, okay, we're in Fenland, we're in marshland. Like, it doesn't have to be a slog up a 20% gradient in order to be a tough race. It can be a tough race because it's like windy or technical, or maybe you've got a bit of gravel thrown in there or something.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's more to. There's much more to racing than just who's the fittest and who can go up this climb the strongest. Like I want it to be more dynamic than just a fitness test. I suppose, talking about this, the race that comes to mind is Cycle
Yep.
Classic, as that's probably the standout one that's not got climbs as such in it. But then that's like all the way on the other side of the spectrum, where it's just insane for other reasons.
It's like
still not that. It's still not that inviting.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. I'd love to see that. But I guess it's just a case of where we are right now, and the races that have survived just happen to be tough courses. And hopefully as the calendar like recovers, we'll get back to, you know, a more varied calendar rather than just who's the best climber each year.
No, but I mean, to circle back to the Tour de Res, it's just good. Like there's no downside to having an extra race. I think as long as they can get the sponsors on board, get it back to a stage race, and get people over there. Where exactly is it? I'm not actually sure. Somewhere up north, isn't it?
Oh, it was.
I mean, it's on the moors. I don't know which moors are they on.
Slightly like it's Newcastle area. I can't.
Okay,
I should remember
proper
where
north.
like the names of the places that I raced through, but I can't.
So you just had your head down, looking at the wheel in front of you.
Looking at it wasn't even a wheel. I was dropped.
Looking at the team car bumper.
Yes. Oh, dear.
Right. Two riders that I assume both raced the Tour de Res, Mason Hollyman and Harrison Wood, have both stepped down from Pro Conti and World Tour to the Portuguese team Sabgal Anicolor, which is, you'll recognise the name potentially because Ollie Rees raced for them this year, and he was quite the figure in the National Series when we were chatting about those. He won one of the rounds, was up in the top tens a lot. They've also had, I think they've had a couple of other Brits on there. James Whelan, probably one of the best known riders over the last couple of years, was on there last year before getting a ride on Q36.5, who are also going to come up later. It all ties together in a big, beautiful spider's web. But yes, so we're going to talk about Mason Hollyman and Harrison Wood stepping down from two very big teams to a team that's potentially not so big, which surprised me because I thought both of them were doing quite well as like a domestique. You know, they weren't winning races left, right and centre, but I thought they were both doing very good jobs at just being domestiques, like pulling. Mason Hollyman, there was lots of shots of him when I'm watching races from the start, of him pulling the peloton along, despite him being like 5'1". I don't know how tall he is, but he's tiny. And Harrison Wood as well in the classics.
Yeah, obviously Harrison Wood was Cofidis. Mason Hollyman was Israel Premier Tech. Do you think it's not necessarily a culture shock, but when you step into a World Tour team, does everybody want to win? And is that why they're stepping back down? And they want to kind of relearn how to win in order to then step up as a winner?
No. I don't think anyone steps down to a Conti team from World Tour as a choice. It'll be that either they only got offers from World Tour that was like, you know, you're going to be paid minimum wage, World Tour salary, and you're going to go to like 3 races. We're going to send you to the Tour of Guangxi, and like you're just going to be a slave to the rest of the riders. Maybe at that point. I mean, I don't think Sabgal are paying a lot of money, surely.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's a move that either of them would have chosen. But it could be good for them in the long run. If, like you said, they can win some races, show that they're really good. I mean, they were winning races on the way up before they got to the level they were last year or this year. Yeah, it's just a bit of a surprise, really. Yeah,
to be fair, they've got like some miles in the legs. I mean, like Harrison Wood here rode the Giro this year. I think he completed the Giro. Like, you know, it's not often you get the opportunity to race a full World Tour calendar effectively, and then go and, you know, because currently he will be a domestique for Cofidis, smashing out the miles on the front. then if he steps down to Sabgal and they're like, yeah, boom, you're incredible because you've ridden the Giro and you've ridden Tour de Pologne and, you know, Norway and all these things, they give him some more leeway and he could win or get some really good results. I wonder if, as well, part of it is mental. You know, it's tough to, like, you go and work and now you're just like a slave to the leaders. And you kind of start to not enjoy the racing as much. So maybe stepping down gives them an opportunity to rediscover what they love about racing without quite as much pressure.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, the Portuguese scene is pretty good. I think they've started to move past their, you know, doping scandals with the Porto team that vanished. That was a good few years ago now. There are lots of high-level races over there, obviously next to Spain, so you can get over, do those races pretty easily. Sabga, they do seem to be moving up. Whether they're going to go for a pro Conti license in 2026, maybe they're looking for a long-term kind of building with the team potentially. Not really sure there, but yeah, it's just surprising, really. I mean, they're both born the same year as me, actually, so they're both 24. You're not super young. You kind of spat out the under-23s and you're like suddenly treated as a senior rider. There's no excuse for being young anymore, really. Yeah, just a reminder of how cutthroat it is.
Yeah, that's true. And the flip side, as you said, is if we skip ahead, I'm going to skip ahead because it ties in, is Joe Pidcock. You know, he's jumping up massively, isn't he? So he's going from Trinity, which obviously has folded this year, up to Q3 365. So mega cutthroat. What do you think of Joe Pidcock going to the team with his brother?
Yeah, I mean he probably won't like it, but the massive story there is that he's joining his brother, Tom. So it's difficult to ignore that, really, when you talk about it. Like you want to treat him as his own person and not Tom's brother. But when you join him in a team, it's hard to avoid that. I mean, trying to look at it unbiased and on its own, it's a bit of a surprising move. I don't think Joe has had particularly crazy results this year.
So I had a quick gander. He won stage 5 of the Ronda de Lizard and stage 5 of the Ras Mumhan. So they're both UCI races, but they're not like massive UCI races. On their own, you know, I can't say whether or not they would get you a contract with Q365. I mean, Rory Townsend actually rides for the team, and he's incredibly strong, but he wasn't like smashing back the wins before he got that contract. It wasn't like he won 10 races that year. So you could say that Joe Pidcock is there on merit. He's a good enough rider. Maybe he wasn't given the opportunities he needed or didn't quite show it, but now he's got somebody in his corner, in Tom, who can say, yeah, I know this guy's numbers. Like, he's got these wins. I know his numbers. I know what he's capable of. Give him a chance and we can prove it.
Yeah, I mean, he's on a 2-year contract as well, so it's not like a 1 year and see how he fares. A 2-year contract is a pretty big deal. But I mean, the question is, do you think he would have made that move if he wasn't Tom's brother?
Yeah, I wrote down here, is nepotism okay in professional sports? And it's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek question, but
I mean, it's far from the first brother partnership.
Yeah, that's the point.
And it happens all the time, and there can be a lot more reasons for it than just Tom being like, "Okay, you can sign me, but go and sign my brother too," as like a favour.
Yeah,
like you want people in your team. You want people in your team that you can train with and are familiar with and
you can
get
trust.
along with. And obviously, brothers are the closest thing to that in the world. Like Joe, I'm sure there's absolutely no doubt that Joe would absolutely turn himself inside out to pull a group back for Tom in a race if it ever comes to that.
In fact, something, you know, that my tongue-in-cheek question there, because actually I think that it's part and parcel, and you explain the reasons perfectly there as to why you would want someone you can trust and rely on. He had a post like way back in 2021 on his Instagram saying it's worth like if you're listening to this, it's worth finding it, and maybe we can find a link to it to put it on the video as well. He was saying how he felt ashamed of having like the Pidcock name, that he was embarrassed to be linked to Tom's incredible performances and not be able to live up to that and not perform and live under his shadow, it was like heartbreaking to read. But hopefully he's now going to be able to step up and make his make his own name in his own way, racing at the same level. And it shows that whatever the real behind the scenes stuff, he really wants to achieve his own goals. He really wants to succeed on his own terms and not just to be known as Tom Pidcock's younger brother.
Yeah, I mean, questions of merit. Has he joined on merit? If he was on his own, he didn't have an older brother, no, I don't think he'd be on the team. But that's not to say that I don't think it's merited. Is that a word? Merited?
Yeah.
I don't think it has merit.
It is now.
Like, I do think it's worth it for the team, for Tom, for Joe, for them all to join in. Like, I think it's not a situation where Tom has been like, you have to sign my brother, and they're like, fine, but he's not going to go to any races or anything. Like, it is worth him being there. He is a very, very good cyclist. Removing Tom out of it completely, I'm sure he probably would have made the step up eventually. Maybe not quite this early. But the results he has are, I mean, very consistent and very good over the last 2, 3, 4 years. So now we're going to have Joe Pidcock racing alongside Tom Pidcock on a Pro Conti team. They'll probably get some wild cards, some big races, racing against each other. They'll join the likes of Matthew van der Poel, David van der Poel, Nairo Quintana, whatever Nairo Quintana's brother's called. Hasn't Biniam Girmay got a brother, I think, as well, a younger brother? Oh, I should probably look up some of the other ones. But yeah, 2 brothers racing at some of the biggest races. 2 British brothers racing at some of the biggest races in the world. I think it's going to be exciting to watch.
100%. Yeah, I'm here for it. I'm really happy for him, and I think that he's gonna, as I say, kind of step out from the shadow of his surname and perform really well. Fingers crossed for him.
Oh, of course, Simon and Adam Yates.
You know, they share the same birthday as me, and that's about where the similarities diverge. They've been way more successful.
I actually got on the top 10 of a Strava leaderboard on a random flat segment in Kent, and he had the KOM. So
that's pretty good.
I've basically met him.
I actually have beaten him in a race. I've probably said that before. I've technically beaten him in a race, but we can just ignore everything else.
I just before we move on, I just want to say that the pressure that Joe must be under, I can't even imagine. Like, Tom is under a lot of pressure because he's getting paid loads of money and he needs to perform at the races, and I'm sure he puts himself at a lot higher level than he has been this year. But Joe, like, the Pidcock name has become huge over the last, obviously, 10 years. And yeah, to be carrying that around, I couldn't even begin to imagine what that's feeling like. And the fact that he can perform at the level he is performing consistently is impressive.
Yeah, 100%. So what's next? We've got
you've jumped ahead here, so it's a little bit.
I totally threw us off, but something that is worth talking about. Which one do you want to go with first? Because they're both kind of up your alley.
Let's go for some of my local races. So recently I was down. I've done some media work with Fergus, who has organised the first round of the Cowshot Cauldron. You might have seen on Instagram. Cowshot, I mean, even if you're not a cyclist in the UK, if you've ridden a bike in the UK, you've probably done a school trip to Cowshot Activity Centre and gone on the velodrome down there. It's an incredibly unique, interesting indoor velodrome in the south of England, like right in the south of England. basically on the Isle of Wight, but it's in the corner of the New Forest. Really awkward to get to. Anyway, really cool velodrome. It's absolutely tiny. It's like 143 metres long. Really old. It's the oldest indoor cycling venue in the UK. The velodrome used to be the one taken out of the Wembley Arena back in the day, and then they rebuilt it in 1996, I think. They used to have weekly winter series, track series, up until 2019. Not to brag, but I won that. And then they had to cancel it because of COVID and finances. It was just getting too expensive. People have been trying to kind of get it back running, but it takes a lot of work to organise events. So Fergus has stepped up to organise it. So we had the first round. It was a great success. Everyone loved it. It was freezing cold as it normally is. And we've got another one coming in early February. Very early February, probably the first weekend. So yeah, there'll be more information on that, but come down. Have you ever ridden Cowshot? I don't imagine you have you?
No, I've only ridden a velodrome once, or like a proper velodrome. I've ridden some open airs, but Newport velodrome was like my only time. And obviously Newport's like a proper velodrome. It's big, it's modern. To think of riding a 140 odd meter, it's like basically one of those wall of death things.
That's what the corners feel like. Although it's not actually that steep. Ghent is pretty short as well. Ghent is about 165 metres. The one they obviously held the Ghent 6-day. But they have much steeper bankings. They have about a 53-degree banking, whereas Cowshot's about 45. So it's really strange riding around it. Like it's very unique. They say if you learn on Cowshot, then you can just ride any velodrome in the world. Like there's not really much more difficult to ride. It's a really technical velodrome. Like you've really got to know how to, or learn how to get the bike around the bankings really quickly. It's not about just power. Like Lee Valley, Newport, Derby, Manchester, you can just power around it, and you're not going to get flung up too far unless you're going about 80 kilometres an hour. Whereas Cowshot, like if I sprinted around the banking, I'd get flown into the barrier, basically.
Is there scratch racing on this?
Yeah, so the day of events that we had senior racing, masters, youth, and sprint racing. So everything apart from the sprint was like scratch races, points race, unknown distance. I think there was a tempo race, which is every lap whoever's on the front gets a point. Obviously, when it's that short, it gets a bit crazy. But yeah, great racing. Did you have anything to add to that, or can I move on to
No, that sounds sick, honestly.
We'll get you down as well. We'll do the Brompton race and the track race.
Oh, yeah, Brompton on the velodrome will be incredible.
Exactly. I wonder what that would be like. And then we've got Seb Otley's events as well. People know about the Portsdown Classic on the same day as Perth's used to be on, same course, different finish. That was a great event last year with Sam Coldwell coming out on top. Obviously no St Piran this year to demolish the race, which will be great. Hopefully a really competitive event again. Hopefully no rain, but there probably will be. It's always really cold. There's always people in like full thermals and a buff racing.
Yeah, it's February in the UK. I'm sure some people are just basically treating it as a training ride.
That's the vibe really. But you've got winners of Perths. I recently just made a reel about it. That Alex Dowsett, Rory Townsend that we mentioned, Sean Yates, the legend. Sean Yates won it back in the day. Yanto Barker of Le Cole, Jacob Vaughan won it whilst he was on Canyon a few years ago. Alex Richardson never actually won it, although he did DNF after he got too cold.
That I am down for that.
Yeah, which I can't blame him for at all. And then he's got Kennel Hill Classic as well, previously known as Goodwood Classic, RCR Fat Creations Classic, but Kennel Hill is a name that's going to stick. Is the one that's on the Goodwood course from the World Champs back in 1982 that Cerrone won ahead of Greg LeMond when he kind of chased his teammate down. I've talked about that race before. I love it.
So cool. I love the fact that there are these like this sort of forgotten history of racing in the UK.
Yeah.
Things like a Goodwood World Champs course. What? We had the World Champs at Goodwood. The only one in modern memory is Yorkshire. So to not only
and
have
Scotland.
that, but then yeah, I meant in England.
and the Isle of Man.
We had the Worlds in the Isle of Man.
Oh no, of course that was just the Nationals.
Nationals
Sorry,
in Ireland,
I had
man.
images of Cavendish, but that was just the Nationals, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I
carried
guess
away.
like you forget that the UK had this huge vibrant scene, 50 years ago.
When it was still, I mean, cycling back then was very underground. It wasn't. Those were the years of like banned time trials and stuff, where the 10 mile time trial scene kind of rose up. A lot easier to run an event. None of that red tape bureaucracy.
I'd
Yeah.
almost say it's in a way because there was that period when TTs weren't allowed in the UK. That sort of thing.
That's what I mean. That's where this 10 mile stuff came
Yeah.
from, because it was like, we're not racing. We're just going to ride from this lamppost to that lamppost that's 10 miles away.
We just
Somebody
all
times
hear
us. That's just an accident.
somebody accidentally times
And
us.
that's why all the time trial courses are these weird codes.
Yes.
P164. That's the best time trial course in the country.
E210, I think you'll find.
It sounds like we're doing like
There'll be
postcode
like
wars.
a French person listening to this, and I'm just like, what are these guys chatting
I
about?
don't think there are any French people listening to this, Owen.
We can expand. It's fine. Global.
Yeah, maybe next year. Next year we'll do the French domestic racing scene podcast. There'll be a little bit more to talk about, to be honest.
Yeah, true. That's true. But no, that's really good. Really good that you're like, A, that those are happening, and B, that you're supporting them. So, chapeau. Thank you.
Exactly. Everyone should support them. Come down. I mean, Calshot's very cold for spectators, quite a drive. But stuff like Portsdown Classic and Kennel Hill, if you're not racing, well, first of all, come and race it. If you're not racing, just come and ride over. One's obviously in Goodwood, one's on Portsdown Hill. Easy to remember. And yeah, just watch some cyclists brave out the weather and go very quickly. A new team, Owen.
A new team!
There seems to have been, I don't know whether it's just my wishful thinking, but there seems to be a flurry of new teams and races over the last kind of month or so.
Yeah.
Which is what I kind of said before, was that there's going to be a void and it's going to be filled with people eventually. This has happened a bit quicker than I thought it would. So this is like an ad hoc race team initiative that aren't racing in the UK. They're just a foreign UCI team, similar to the sort of thing Bim Bam were doing last year. But every race that they focus on will have a different sponsor, or they'll do like a different sponsor drive for each one. So it's like a rolling kind of pops up when it's needed, gets the riders over there, gets the funding. It's a little bit more mobile. A sponsor doesn't have to fork out 100 grand to sponsor it for a whole year. You know, if Monument wanted to sponsor it for one weekend. So for Tour of the Roads, is it Tour of the Roads? Tour of Roads? The race in Greece, the stage race, they'll be known as MyPad Racing. But yeah, what do you make of that kind of set? I think it's really good.
I think it's really cool. It's a novel solution to the current British racing scene. And it kind of made me think, whether is it too dissimilar to the setup that happens already? You know, you have a lot of volunteer-run teams, even a UCI continental team. You've got this huge discrepancy between one that has a £250,000 budget and one that's like on a shoestring. Really, this is just one of those ones on a shoestring. Like it's not too dissimilar, and if they can make it work, like more power to them. Where's the difference? Where's the downside? I think it's good, and more people should be willing to, like.
I mean, obviously there are downsides there, in that they're not. You haven't got the stability of a big team. Like at the end of the year, ultimately, there's nothing really there that's been created other than opportunities for the riders, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's going to be. You're not going to have such a professional setup at the races because you're only working from race to race.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be hard to commit to as a rider because you don't know whether that's going to be there after a race. Like maybe one race you don't get the sponsors. What happens then?
Yeah, I wondered.
Ultimately, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I wondered because the riders, like Ed Morgan, who rides for Thriver SRCT, he's down for the Rhodes race. But like, how does he fit in with his own team? His own team is an elite team with decent sponsors and a decent level. Like, do you race with or against your MyPad teammates?
Well, they're not doing the same race, are they?
I thought that like you might take 6 riders to Rhodes.
Yeah.
And then even if your team isn't there, even if Thriver's not there, like, do you help your teammates, or is it just every man for himself? Do you, your MyPad teammates?
I see what you mean. It can kind of create a little bit of a every man for himself situation.
Yeah.
I think you race as a team. I mean, but that's another kind of negative. Like, there's probably going to be some races where you're footing your travel bill and your accommodation. Like, if I'm paying £500-600 to go and race a UCI race, I'm not going to spend the week leading out some random guy that's paid the same amount of money as me. Like, I'll do it. Obviously, you work as a team, but I'm not going to completely sacrifice myself.
Yeah.
So there's some stuff that can arise there, but I think it's needed. Oh,
Yeah.
Ideally, it would, we'd just be full of full-time teams that are sending out 10 riders to 5 riders to UCIs every week, but that doesn't exist right now. So the more of these kind of fluid, filling the gaps, it will give a lot of different riders opportunities, because you can just kind of dip in, do one race, do whatever. But there are riders in the UK that are at the level that they can go and do these UCI races and get good results, but the only thing blocking them is that they don't have a team that can take them there. So this steps up, gives them the opportunity. They win a race, get a World Tour contract, boom. Done.
It's like the step one, win a World Tour race. Okay, easy.
Exactly.
But yeah, I agree. I like it. I think the state that we're in right now means that it has to exist. And the fact that somebody's grabbing it by the horns and actually doing it is really good. And hopefully, as they said in an interview with the British Continental, like, maybe we'll be able to get more sponsors on because of it. And if they can, if out of this can come like a fully fledged team, like, brilliant. I think it'll be quite difficult to do that though, seeing how hard Harry Tanfield found it. And he had like the sort of the bare bones, the spine of St. Piran to cling to when he was talking to sponsors. He had a lot of press. And
I'm not sure that was a great spine to cling to be honest.
Yeah, true. And maybe that may have gone against him in some respects. But he struggled, and he had much more of a framework to go to sponsors with. So
yeah, although he did try and do it in like a week. So
that rather than a year.
Maybe over a year you'd be able to do it. But we'll see. I think
Yeah,
it's just a good,
the thing is, positive point. We've got Harry Tanfield's team that was like almost there. We've got MyPad Racing. We've got a few others coming onto the scene as well, like Raptor Factory have announced. We may well get 1 or 2 UCI teams at the end of 2025 anyway. So it's just a 1-year stopgap.
Yeah. Yeah, which is what I said. I said, everybody, don't worry. We'll fill the gaps. I think eventually it needs to happen sustainably. It needs to happen naturally, and ebbs and flows. But yeah, there are lots of good signs coming out over the last few months, if you look for it, which is what we're doing.
Exactly.
Right, that covers all the exciting road stuff. Cyclocross. You've been following Cam Mason and Thomas Mean as they taper. No, they're not tapering. As they build form, there we go, towards the British Cyclocross National Champs, which happen in a week, 2 weeks?
2 weeks, yeah.
2 weeks' time. So they should be pretty much near the peak, just about to start their taper. And they're both doing very well, aren't they?
Yeah, they've been head-to-head. As I said earlier, that's sort of like the Tour de France. You never really go head-to-head. But they have sort of gone head-to-head in some races, and they've taken chunks out of each other. So you've got Cam Mason is recently his one was he started like gridded 25th in some race. He was gridded 25th in the UCI World Cup in Hulst, some race, and ended up coming 5th. So he managed to cut his way through the whole field to 5th, and like the sort of rider that he was up against, like Eli Isabit, was just ahead of him. So these guys are like incredible, European champions and national champions. He really struggled earlier this cyclocross season for form. And you could see it like every time he'd do a race, he's like, oh, what is wrong with my form? So it's starting to come good, which is really nice to see. Conversely, Thomas Meehan just started strong and he has maintained his strength. So he's
even he's taking steps up. So he did.
yeah.
He did 2 Belgian World Cups at the end of November, on my birthday actually, and at the start of December, and he got 23rd and 13th. And that's when we were like, yeah, they're doing well, but they're not, it's not the results they used to have. And he's just done exact cross in Loenhout, Azencross, Azencross, got 7th, and he did a World Cup in France just last week. No, yesterday. And he got 6th.
Yeah. And Azencross is like Mathieu van der Poel won that.
Yeah.
Like Thibaut Nice, Wout van Aert in 4th. I mean, that's the level that... And Cam Mason was there in 13th. So you've got Cam Mason in 13th, Thomas Meehan in 7th, and Wout van Aert in 4th. Like,
I mean, obviously
good.
that's a big gap between 7th and 13th in amount of riders that were there, but they're only separated by 50 seconds,
yeah.
which is not that much. Tim Merlier as well there. I didn't realise he raced cyclocross at that level. That's pretty cool.
Powerful rider, isn't he? So it kind of suits him.
Likes his mud.
He likes his mud. But that's the incredible thing. We have riders like Thomas Meehan, like Cam Mason, who can get these top 5s, top 10s in World Cup cyclocross races. I think it shows that, like, it shows the quality of racing that you have in the UK cyclocross scene.
It's just a shame that we don't activate it properly. I think that it could be. I haven't given this enough thought, to be honest, but I don't. Surely, if you've got riders at this level, you've got Tom Pidcock, an event can be made that is huge and that can rival the French, Belgian, Dutch cyclocross scenes. Surely.
Can you tell from my face?
Is that your thinking face?
That's my Owen has behind the scenes knowledge that can't be told right now face.
Okay. Not even I know it. Don't tell me your little secrets.
I'll tell you off camera. But
right, we need to make some Instagram friendly content now.
Okay.
It's the 30th of December, Owen. Who is going to win the British Cyclocross National Champs men's?
Thomas Meehan. Oh, I didn't even think. I just said what came into my head, man.
Okay, why?
He has had a much more consistent build. He has hit form at the same time as Cam Mason, but that consistency means that when it comes to delivering on a given day, I'm going to put more faith in him. Whereas Cam Mason might perform really well, and we know he has in the past, but this year he's been more hit and miss, so he might miss. He might miss on that day, and that's just the way it feels right now. I hope he doesn't. But
that's very good, because I was going to go Cam Mason. So
really,
yeah, I just think he's gonna pull it out on the day. I think he's a big event, big race rider.
This is Van der Poel and Van Aert, isn't it?
Exactly.
Van der Poel is the big race rider, and Van Aert isn't.
Unfortunately, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think he's going to. Despite this exact cross, 7th and 13th, I think Cam's gonna. He's at a steeper progression, I think, over the last kind of 2 months.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
Whereas Thomas seems to be steady, but no matter who wins, it's going to be a crazy race, I think.
Yeah, it's going to be brilliant.
Who do you reckon is going to get 3rd? I assume Tom Pidcock's not racing. Oh no, he's not. He's not doing any cyclocross this year.
I've not seen the start list. If a rider like Joe Blackmore turns up, he likes to race across, then he would. I think he would. He'd be fighting for the victory, to be honest. But in all likelihood, someone like Toby Barnes from Spectra Racing, I think, is consistently been top 5, top 3 in the UK. So he's likely to be getting that final podium spot.
So the race last year up in Scotland, Falkirk, that's Scotland, isn't it?
Yeah.
Cam Mason got the better of Thomas by just over a minute, and then it was Lewis Askey that got 3rd, actually.
Oh yeah.
Toby Barnes was down in 5th.
Sounds about
So-
right. Yeah, Lewis Askey is one of those riders. He loves racing cross, but he's got a World Tour contract to think about, so he can't go and like smash the national trophy. But he can probably get leeway to go and do a national championships every so often.
Yeah. What is Lewis Askey doing? Has he got a contract for next year? I can't see his.
I hope so.
But he's been
like-
another one that I think has been doing very well. But I thought Mason Hollyman and Harrison Wood were doing very well. So it's a bit.
It's a
He hasn't
cutthroat
done-
world, isn't it?
Exactly.
Is
He
he not?
has got a contract for next year. So next year is his contract
Phew.
year.
That's good. Hopefully he does well then.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't do crazy well this year. Apart from obviously second in the national champs. Just behind Ethan Hayter.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Fingers crossed for him. Contract year, big year. We'll have to keep an eye on it and update people as it goes.
Yeah, I remember him. He was the same sort of era that I was. He won the Junior Tour of Wales the year that I didn't actually race it. I wasn't actually good enough to race it. But it was the year that I almost raced it. So yeah.
I could have been a contender.
I could have been a contender to race it, let alone actually get around each stage.
Oh dear.
Right. That's it.
That's it for this
We've
one.
got an outro to go. Happy
Perfect.
New Year, Owen. Happy Christmas. Happy New Year.
Thank you. Happy New Year
More
to
in
you too.
2025. 2025, we're going to do a podcast every single day.
Maybe a week. We'll go with every single week.
Fine. Okay, we'll do it every week.
Guaranteed it. Boom.
Do another tv.monumentcycling.com.
I shall. tv.monumentcycling.com is where you can find our premium content. It's where you can help support Monument Cycling, help support myself and Harry as we bring some light onto the British scene. It's just a small amount each month helps us create this content. And if you enjoy it, if you want to help support us, please go do that. And also stay tuned, as I said, for some people who have seen that. We've got a new sponsor to announce soon for next year. So we've got some great plans for next year. Really looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.
Bye.